Welcome to your new home for football, where you'll get real international coverage from real football fans. We're talking Brighton, England, Birmingham, England, London, England, Glasgow, Scotland, Dublin, Ireland, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and St. Louis, Missouri. You'll get coverage from all the big time leagues. Join in on live day match watch-alongs. Enjoy live football debates. Nothing but all things football. Catch us live 8pm UK time on Thursdays on all major platforms, or listen to us the next day on the Sports Social Podcast Network. This is Football Nation, your home for all things football.
Hello guys, welcome back to Football Nation, your home of all things football. I'm joined by Chris today. How are you, mate?
I'm good, tired but good. Still recovering from transfer deadline day.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce our guest tonight before we start?
Yes, we are tonight joined by the Blues Focus, the Birmingham City podcast team. How are we tonight, my man?
I'm good, man. It's good to be on. It's really exciting to have a talk about the Blues, really.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And how are you tonight, Jono?
I am good. A bit tired, running around doing quite a lot today, as you can imagine. But yeah, looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this podcast. It's going to be a good one. And
Definitely.
let's get started. So, obviously, we just had the transfer deadline day, so we're doing it slightly differently today. Obviously, normally we'd go through the games, but there was no Premier League games. It was just the cup games, and it was the deadline day. So, let's go through what happened on that deadline day. Mate, if you catched us on the stream, thanks for jumping in. It was a lot of fun. We done a 9.5-hour stream for deadline day for the transfer window. It was long. Especially
it was
for Chris.
long. Yeah, especially for me. Thank you very much. Yeah, so yeah, I've been up since 5:30 that day. Yeah, so that was fun. But yeah, it was good. It was all good fun.
Yep. And let's go into it. Let's see what happened. And I'm going to go straight to Chris for the first one. Enzo Fernandez. It went right down to the wire. Chris was losing his shit on the stream. He was getting a bit. He was getting a bit nervous, I think.
Yeah.
Enzo Fernandez, record deal to Chelsea. Over to Chris.
Yeah. Soon as we had kind of Fabrizio Romano on in the background. As soon as he said regarding Enzo Fernandez, here we go. Yeah, it was. I think it was just the kind of the relief, basically, because of how long. Because I read into it a wee bit. There was in talks for 20 hours trying to get that deal done because of how much money it was going to cost, and obviously with Rui Costa kind of putting up all the stops to try and stop him from going to Chelsea, but eventually player power kind of said, I don't want to play for Benfica, I want to play for Chelsea. I think that's when the kind of ball started kind of moving. But for 120 million euros, we're getting a World Cup winner, but also we're getting a project starting. You can see what they're trying to aim for, kind of young, talented players. You've seen in the kind of transfer window which Chelsea have bought, which is a lot. I mean, £340 million just in January, 640 million in total. Sorry, Blues fans, but those are numbers that you can dream of at this moment in time.
I mean, that's the most we've ever made in any sort of transfer window, just like the entire history of our transfer window. That is.
Exactly. But yeah, I think Chelsea have got an absolute wonder kid. We've seen quite a lot of them during the World Cup, obviously, with Argentina, and I was kind of looking at his stats. He's top in like passing in the whole Portuguese league at this moment in time for long passing, short passing, creativity as well. And then obviously losing Jorginho, kind of his place, the kind of similar kind of player. I think they're getting a bit of an upgrade on Jorginho with Enzo Fernandez.
Yeah, I agree. Amazing World Cup, great player. Really good deal for Chelsea. Expensive, but they got their man. Do you have anything to add on it, mate?
I think with Enzo Fernandez, he's a player that I probably don't know that much about. So I'll be interesting to see how he plays at Chelsea. I don't know if he's more of an attacking midfielder. I don't know if he's more of a wide man. I don't think he's a striker because when he was playing in the Argentina squad, I think he was playing sort of just behind Messi.
He's a
But I
kind of
was excited by him.
he's like kind of number 6, number 8 kind of play. He can play that, see that kind of attacking midfielder, but he also can play the kind of deeper role that he has done for Benfica more often than not. But for Argentina, like you said, he was playing in behind Messi, kind of. But with the Argentinian squad, anyone can play in behind Messi. You can just pass the ball to him and you can put it in the back of the net.
Yeah. Because it's linked with that transfer, obviously Jorginho to Arsenal on the other way, actually with Fernandes coming in. Arsenal needed that midfielder to boost their squad for the rest of the season for their title push. They brought Jorginho in. As a Chelsea fan, do you think that's a good signing for them, Chris?
Well, hopefully previous Chelsea players that went to Arsenal caused them a bit of disruption. Gala, Willian, David Luiz, Petr Cech. So hopefully it's Asian Jorginho kind of stuffs up their title chances this season. But nah, I wish Jorginho all the best. He won Chelsea Champions League, won the Super Cup with them. Jorginho was a class player. He'll be sadly missed at Chelsea, but he was coming towards his end of his contract. Had 6 months or so left in his contract. To get £12 million for him, that's a good bit of business from Chelsea, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think a midfield, if Partey's there, a midfielder, Xhaka and Jorginho could be fun.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of pace in that midfield with Jorginho, Partey, and a lot of good quality. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on that, mate? Before we move on.
Interestingly, that you bring that up actually, because I quite like a more technical player than I do a good speedy player. Really, I think the only way I would want some speed really is up front. I can handle quite a slower midfielder or maybe a defensive line or whatever. I think the technical aspect of football really needs to come back to that sort of, because there's a lot of speed and power in players nowadays. I feel like players like Jorginho, when you see him play, and I mean, like Argentina goal they score in that World Cup final, the second goal, it's just absolutely incredible. It starts all the way back, move it all the way forward, and they score from it. Di Maria puts it in the back of the net, and you just think like that's proper football. That is I understand like Mbappe is like powerful and speedy. You know, he's got an amazing shot on him, and he's a fantastic player. But I just appreciate the technique and the skill of most players much more than that. So I feel like with Arsenal bringing in Jorginho, I think that's a nice addition to them because it gives them a bit more. I think a bit more stability in there as well, because he's a European championship winner as well with Italy.
He's a good experience. I mean, there wasn't a lot of experience in that midfield, and now with obviously, like you said, kind of title, like kind of winning trophies, it gives them a wee bit more of a winning mentality in that midfield as well. Because there's not like we said, there's not a lot of experienced kind of winners in that Arsenal team at all. So you might give them that kind of push to maybe do more, basically. Hopefully not, but
yeah. Obviously, with that deal happening as well, Lokonga went to Palace. That's an interesting deal for them. I thought that was a surprise. I thought they might have kept him, but there was rumours it was going to be a permanent deal, but it is a loan. I think Monaco did go in with a permanent deal, but he turned them down and he went on loan to Palace.
I think after watching, I don't know if he's both seen it, the Manchester City game against Arsenal. After the goal, I think Xhaka and somebody else had a proper go at Lokonga about him not tracking the run for Ake. He just kind of done a little dance in the penalty box and didn't pick him up. And then next thing, it's in the back of the net. So there maybe something's gone on, and Arteta's like, right, you're not good enough to play in this team at this moment in time. I'm going to take you out the firing line and maybe get some game time somewhere else in the Premier League to maybe build your confidence up and get you more consistent to kind of maybe matching the kind of Premier League standing.
I think it's the perfect place for him to go as well. Obviously, under the Vieira, I think he can really get something out of him. So it'd be interesting to see in the next half of the season. Next player we had was a surprise. originally rumoured in the morning that he was a loan, but Spurs terminated his contract, and that was Matt Doherty leaving Spurs to Atletico Madrid. What did you guys think of this?
I don't know, actually. He's obviously not been the player that they wanted to replace him with, is he? Because they've lost Trippier to Madrid, Atletico. And they thought they could get that with Doherty. But, I don't know. With that Wolves team that they had in that, I can't remember what season it is exactly now. I think it's the 2020 season that they were in the Europa League.
Yeah, 2019-2020 season, I think.
Yeah. They were a decent squad at that time. They had Traore, they had... who's the Mexican striker they had?
Jimenez,
that's his name, yes. I think, though, that it's always a gamble when you buy those players, particularly thinking from well, the team that we once were about 10 years ago, and knowing that the players we could have produced, was that Matt Doherty probably can't be at the level that Spurs want to be at, because obviously they want to push for the top four nowadays. Matt Doherty, he wasn't in that sort of category to be in there. Neither is Traore, and Jimenez, ever since he had that injury, it's just not been the same, really. So I feel like he's one of those players, really, that he took a gamble on, and it's not come off well. So, it's just one of those things. I don't think he's a bad footballer. He's just not up to the standards that they wanted him to be. And maybe he could find maybe he could find his way at Atletico in a different country, different league, different experience for him. Might open his eyes up to something different.
Yeah, I think I'm interested to watch that one. I think it could be a free transfer, so they've got nothing to lose. Next, I know this one annoyed Chris.
Yeah.
So doing a live stream, it's all going well. He's signing Fernandes. Ziyech is leaving. We all know Chris hates. And then Chelsea don't send the right paperwork to Paris to complete the deal for Ziyech. PSG are not happy at all.
PSG are not happy. How do you think I feel? Stuff what PSG thinks. What about me?
Think of what Chris is feeling, everybody. Exactly. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, these things have happened in the past. But from what I read, I kind of said off stream as well that it was the Chelsea sent the wrong paperwork 3 times. From what I read, which in a way is a bit embarrassing, but I think
we do.
But I think at that moment in time, I think Mr. Bowley and the Chelsea hierarchy had a wee bit more bigger fish to fry than Hakim Ziyech going out on loan. So, but I can, as a footballing fan, I feel sorry for Ziyech because he wants more game time. He wants to be playing football and wants to be loved. And yes, boom, I had the bags. I was literally driving him to the Paris Saint-Germain's training grounds. That's why I left off stream. I went to my bed. I was getting myself ready to go to London, pack his things, and get him over to Paris.
Bye.
But, yeah. Bye. Don't hit your arse on the way back. But yeah, like I said, I feel sorry for him. But these things of football have happened, as we've said before. The David De Gea move to Real Madrid, that kind of the dodgy fax machine. But I feel sorry for Ziyech because Potter came out and said today he's trained today. He's in good spirits. He's here to help till the end of the season, and then we'll reassess it in the summer what happens with him. But I don't think he'll get his move to PSG because apparently PSG and Chelsea are no longer in talking terms. The dummy has been spat out.
I heard about this. I did say, hey, PSG are really, really not happy with Chelsea.
Yeah.
So no Mbappe's to Chelsea.
Don't want him anyway. Not good enough.
What did you think of that collapsed deal on deadline day. There's always a bit of drama.
Yeah, there's always a bit of drama, even if there's not entirely much happening. Obviously, there wasn't a big move this transfer window. There hasn't been one for a while, I don't think. I think the last big transfer window probably was in 2017, perhaps, really, with like Neymar and Mbappe going to PSG. Like, that was like thrilling to watch. That was, but yeah, there's always mishaps, mistakes with all that sort of stuff. Like, I don't understand how you can send the wrong paperwork 3 times. Like, surely after the first one you go, right, okay, let me go and find the right file for this. Second time, all right, now you need to really look easy. Right, third time, right, we've definitely got to get it right this time. Third time, no, it's still wrong.
It reminds me the season before we signed Ander Herrera, and so-called agents from Manchester United landed in Bilbao, and it turned out it was just some random people at an office in Bilbao. This is not...
mental, absolutely
it is
mental.
weird, isn't it?
But in this day and age, like you said, what's right? So if they're still using a so-called fax machine, why not saying things about email? I mean, it's quicker. Come on, just say it quicker.
Yeah, Control A, that selects all the text, then copy and paste it into an email. Done.
I mean, they must be using carrier pigeon or something like that to maybe get it lost 3 times.
But did the pigeon get shot or something? I don't know.
Well, go over French waters, you never know. You never know. Someone's having a nice bit of pigeon for their dinner tonight.
The next one went through all window. It was dragging on all window, but obviously with Matt Doherty going to Atletico Madrid, they needed a right back, even though they've had right back after right back. They signed Spence, who's now gone on loan. They signed what's the name from Barcelona as well in the summer. Royale, that's not worked out, so they've brought another right back in, and now they've gone to Portugal and got Pedro Perro, formerly of Man City. So yeah, what do we think of this deal?
I actually don't know who he is, to be quite honest. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know much about him. I've heard he had a good season in sport. He's been having a good season in Sporting. He used to play for City, and then they sold him. I think they had a buyback clause on him, but they didn't activate it. So yeah, what do you think of Porro to Spurs?
Well, again, I'm not too sure about him because obviously plays for Sporting Lisbon, but there was a wee bit of so I would talk about Matt Doherty and Pedro Porro. So the reason why this one was kind of more interesting, so Spurs had used up all their loans for that window. So they had Kulusevski, who's the striker that they've got? Kulusevski, they've got Longley, they've got a couple of others on loan. So that's why they had to cancel Matt Doherty's contract, because Porro's only in on loan with an obligation to buy in the summer. If we'll expect it to all go smoothly. So that's why this one's a wee bit more complicated. That's why it never went through until I think it was just coming up to the window close. That's when it kind of got really announced. Yeah. But it'll be interesting because, like you said, they've signed Emerson Royale, they signed Matt Doherty. They're trying to find someone to replace Kieran Trippier, who they haven't done for 4 or 5 years now. Which I mean, Trippier is a fantastic player. It's hard. It will be hard to replace him because he was quality, and we're seeing that at Newcastle as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he copes with the pace of the Premier League, because not a lot of players have done well since from coming over from Portugal. The continent, just the continent in general.
Yeah, it will be an interesting one. Yeah, I don't have much to add on that, but on Spurs, we did want to give best wishes to Conte, who will be out for the foreseeable future. He has had to have into operation, so his assistant manager has took charge of Spurs for the foreseeable future. We don't know how long it's going to be yet. Everyone at Football Nation wishes him a speedy recovery, and next we had our boys. Obviously, with the injury to Eriksen on that horrendous tackle by Andy Carroll.
Challenge. Proper old school challenge.
Andy Carroll going in hard on Ericsson.
Yes,
he's
that's
now
better.
out. He's now out for 3 months. So we went into the window. We were asking for midfielders, and we got a decent deal. For a panic buy, it's someone that we've been scouting for years. He's been linked with us for years. We were close to bringing him. We're in talks with him when he went to Bayern. Yeah, Sabitzer. I'm really happy with it. I've always rated him as a player. Did a great job at RB Leipzig before he went to Bayern. Obviously, it fell through a bit at Bayern, but he had a lot of competition there. Their midfield at Bayern is ridiculous. But yeah, I'm really happy with that. He can play DM, attacking midfield. He can play out wide. So very versatile player as well. So I'm really happy with the deal. It's just a straight loan. There was rumours at the start of the day it was going to be a loan with an obligation to buy, but it's a loan, and then we'll assess it in the summer. So yeah, I'm really happy. What do you think, guys? I know Boom's happy as well.
With Sabitzer, I think we've kind of said this before. We're going about other players. It's how the German players or German Bundesliga players come over to England as well. How they're going to settle, because the Bundesliga, I mean, it's got 2 or 3 teams that can win the league, whereas in England you've got 6, 7 teams that can probably win the league. It's more competitive, so there's more of a competitive edge than in Germany. So it'll be interesting to see how Sabitzer can adapt. I mean, like we said, it's a 6-month loan deal. A lot of players take a while to adapt to the kind of pace of the league. So for Manchester United fans' sake, we hope it kind of maybe adapts quicker than some people. But I think, like you said, for a parity buy, well, for a team that needed a midfielder, they have got a good midfielder.
Yeah, I last minute, and because obviously we weren't going to go and do a permanent deal because the Glazers just don't want to put their money in the pocket with the imminent sale, and we spoke about that last week. So I think for the club who's just getting loan deals in this window, I don't think we could have done any better than what we've done. So I'm happy. What do you think, mate?
I think, considering how chaotic some of the Man United transfers have been over the last few years, I think that one's a decent one, because obviously there's been some great signings in terms of like some of the players for what they were worth when they first arrived. Like Bruno Fernandes, his first few games when he arrived at Man United, he was absolutely on fire. You couldn't stop him. As well, like you got some of the players like Anthony's first few games for United, pretty decent. But I think you've come away from the days now of buying players like Falcao and Di Maria and them just not performing. I feel like I can see Sabitzer coming in and doing a decent job, because, I mean, I remember him most. Was he at Leipzig? I think that's the place
he
where I
was at
remember him
Leipzig,
most. He was amazing for those. I can really remember that. With Werner up front when he was actually a decent striker before he went to Chelsea.
Hey, he done okay at Chelsea. So he won Chelsea Champions League virtually with him and Havertz. So
How many chances did he miss in that first half in that Champions League final?
Hey, at least Chelsea got to a Champions League final.
Yeah, whatever, man.
I was joking. Got to be nice to the guests.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. As I say, I'm happy. I know Boom's happy. Let us know what you think in the comments. We are live on Twitch and Facebook, and then you'll catch us on YouTube and audio platforms tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe, drop a like. Next we had Everton.
Ooh.
Everton. What can you say about the disaster that is Everton?
I mean, is it a disaster episode? Because we're talking about Everton and now we're going to be talking about Birmingham City. It must be something to do with Blues.
The 2 terrible blue teams are the biggest cities in the UK.
Definitely. I mean, obviously today we had the news about Andre Ayew turning down Everton to go to Nottingham Forest to make them their 30th signing of this year. I mean,
Wow,
that's just bonkers.
Since 2017, stat here I just read before we went live. Since 2017, Leicester have had the same amount of players in as Forest have had in the last year, the last 6 months.
God, that's insane.
But going back to Everton, they're going to struggle to survive. I know Sean Dyche is a good manager, but there's only so much magic a man can work. He's not got much to work with at that team. They've got a striker who's badly out of form in Calvert-Lewin. They've got a defence who is woeful. I mean, Michael Keane was a good defender. Don't know what's happened to him. Yerry Mina won some Barcelona's books for some odd, strange reason.
I think Sean Dyche could get a tune out of Calvert-Lewin and get him back to his form, but that's not. I wouldn't worry about Calvert. I would worry about the assist. I don't know who's for Sean Dyche football. Obviously, it's a 4-4-2 system. I don't know where you're getting that crosses into the box for even if Calvert-Lewin starts to pick up form. I don't know where he's getting that ball in from.
The only one that I can see coming from the right hand side, and I'm a wee bit biased here because he's Scottish, is Nathan Patterson, who is a fantastic young prospect for Everton, and came from Rangers, went to Everton, done very well so far. Obviously picked up a few injuries here and there, but he's a young kid still. But the kind of winger situation, obviously losing Anthony Gordon to Newcastle was a bit of a blow, but obviously he didn't want to be there. I mean, if you're Anthony Gordon, you want to try and progress your career, not stagnate and possibly going to getting relegated to the Championship. So, but they've got decent players. They're just not getting any luck at all. I mean, I feel sorry for Frank Lampard. His hands were tied from this season with regards to the ownership, the way the club's been run. I mean, the fans back them to the hills, but that can only do so much.
It started to get very ugly.
Yeah, I mean, fans fighting, fans confronting Yerry Mina, who doesn't speak a word of English, in the middle of
banners outside of Everton's stadium and training ground, and it's got very ugly there.
I mean, I don't know about yourself. How would you see it from the Birmingham side of things? Do you think you can feel that kind of bit of pain? Their pain as well, don't you?
Yeah, I think what Everton are going through is quite recent, so I imagine like what they're feeling at the moment is with like being in relegation scraps. They've never been relegated from the Premier League or the First Division. I'm pretty sure they're not the First Division. They're a club that is very big. You know that you got to look at their history in order to see like the tradition and their heritage that they bring, and they've got like such pride as well. So when a team that you feel like are coming in like prancing about the place and not putting in a proper performance, it frustrates you and it frustrates the life out of you really when you see players who think they're bigger than the club. That's always like a massive issue, but I feel like Everton will get over this just because they're in the Premier League still. I feel like that is why they have to stay up. They go down, they could be in all sorts of trouble. Like, because that Championship it's hard. It's not an easy one.
You've got the stadium coming as well. They spent so much on that brand new stadium.
They shouldn't have gone ahead with so many things. Like, they had this big idea, and it's all great having great ideas and being expansive and wanting to go ahead with things and want to make a better brand for yourself. But you've got to have stability and you've got to have those step forwards, because they went wrong with Rafa Benitez and players they brought in like James Rodriguez earlier in the season. They had to get those things solidified. Like, they had to be finishing like 6th or something in the Premier League, season in, season out, not like up and down here and there. Because like even in 2016, I'm pretty sure when they had Lukaku, they finished like 15th or something like that. And then the next season they finished like 7th. And then the season they're back down the bottom again. They need like that solid stake. Because Spurs, for example, were finishing just outside the Premier League top 4 at the moment. Like 10 years ago, they were probably finishing about 9th.
Yeah.
That's the sort of difference with like where they are now. That's why they can create a new stadium, because they've got that interest now. They've finished 2nd in the Premier League a couple of times. They made the Champions League final. They've got some attractive players like Kane and Son. Not with Everton. You go to watch an Everton game, you think Everton or Spurs for a tourist coming to this country. You go, maybe Spurs. I'll go watch them. That's the sort of, you got to have that stability first, and I'll probably be mentioning that word a lot in the when we talk about Blues.
Yeah. I think I think if there's one man, if I was picking a man though who could save him, it would be Sean Dyche because I think a lot, like, even Everton fans, I've seen there's a guy I know on Facebook. I used to play FM with him, and he's like, and he was going on about he was really unhappy about the Sean Dyche appointment and all that. But I think, yeah, if I don't think I can't think of another appointment who suits where they are now. What he done at Burnley is so underrated with the budget they had in the worst budget in Premier League history to keep him up for so long, twice. Not once. He did it. He came back up and then did it again.
And then also get him to Europe as well.
Get him into Europe as well. It's like, I think so underrated what he done there on that budget. I think, and if they do stay up and maybe new owners do come in and back him, you never know what could happen there.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think we'll talk more about this into the 2 seconds. I'll thumb in my camera a minute. 2 seconds. Yeah, so can I talk about there we go. To talk about the Everton situation, it is going to be one of those ones you're like, who comes in, who pays £500 million for Everton? That's what Farhad Moshiri said he wants for the club. I mean, we're in a kind of bit of a turmoil. I mean, okay, yeah, we've seen Chelsea getting bought for 4.6 billion. Manchester United is up for sale for the exact same kind of price as well. But what's so attractive to Everton to say, all right, they're not going to get Champions League football for the next 5, 6, 7 years if they're going to get relegated? Because, like you said, that championship is so cutthroat. You've seen teams. Take for instance Leeds. For instance, they went down to League 1, and then struggled in the championship. Now they're back up with good owners.
Forest, is Birmingham, another one.
Birmingham,
yeah, literally, yeah. There's a great example actually. That 2019 playoff final. It's Villa and Derby, and whoever got promoted pretty much would have been like, they're saved pretty much. You look at the two now, like you got Villa in the Premier League, they're financially stable now. You look at Derby on the other end, they didn't go up. Villa won that playoff final, which annoyed me anyway because they went on that mad run. They won like 12 games. They went from 13th to 5th in like a space of a couple of months. I'm like, you lucky And so then Derby go into the playoffs. They were lucky to get to that final anyway. Leeds should have realistically played them. And I think Leeds had beaten them if they had got through as well. But then Derby don't get into the Premier League, and you look at them now; they're in League One. Like if that had been Villa and Derby had gone up, Villa would have been in exactly the same position. And that can be with Everton; they don't go up in those 3 years. 3 seasons they got parachute payments for. It could be all over for them. There is no telling for what that happens because you have that so much debt already. I mean, we're in a lot of debt. Like Everton is a Premier League club because of those ambitions they went for, and obviously it's not paid off. Like. They get relegated, don't go back in the next 3 seasons. They could be in the same situation as Derby. That is how cutthroat football business is nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame, but like you say, because Everton have not been relegated. They're one of the founding members of the Premier League, and they were never been relegated. But they are in serious danger, and without them adding, they've lost players. Without them adding to that squad, I just don't see any way back for them. It's sad, but I think they could be one of the first big name to get relegated for a long time.
Yeah, since like Leeds,
yeah, Leeds. I mean, even Newcastle and Southampton as well. Like when they went down as well, but they again Southampton they found a way to get youth players like Ward-Prowse, Walcott, Oxlade-Chamberlain, all those kind of young English players. That's what Everton should be looking at instead of going out and buying, like you said, James Rodriguez, Lukaku. James Tarkowski is a good centre back, but like players like Yerry Mina, I mean, why just their whole transfer ethos was terrible.
I'm sad it didn't go through. That was they bid on deadline day for Sarr at Watford. I think that would have been a really good signing for them. And there was another guy they bid for as well, another winger. They were looking for wingers all day, but I think Sarr would have been such a good signing for them.
Conor Gallagher. They bid 45 million for Conor Gallagher for Chelsea. Chelsea accepted it, but Conor Gallagher said no. So, but yeah,
tough, very tough.
So,
shall we go into our main topic tonight? Are you ready?
Bloody hope so.
So I'll kind of introduce it. So tonight's main topic, as we are, it's a city. As Boom said, I also said it's Everton. So it is a city feeling the Blues at this moment in time. So for one, Blues, as we're talking about Everton, to Birmingham City, and I'm sorry to just put you through a wee bit more depression on this Thursday night, but yeah. So my first kind of question for you, my man, is how have Birmingham City gone from winning the League Cup to the state they are in right now?
Yeah, it's a big time frame. It's things certainly have declined since that day 12 years ago in February. I was there actually with my mum, dad, and my brother, and it was an incredibly emotional day for everyone, even me. You know, I was 8 years old at the time. I don't particularly remember much from the day, but I do remember like that wave of shock, relief, everything when that final whistle went.
When
It was a
Obafemi Martin scored.
it was a remarkable achievement. It felt like that this was the new Blues now. I mean, like, we go back to Everton, they haven't won anything for what, like 30 years, I think it is.
80 odd, 80, I think it's 89
Yeah,
actually.
it's a
When I
long
was,
time ago.
yeah, 89 I think it was.
I mean, like, we've won something in that time, and that's why. I mean, Wigan will feel this as well, like when they got relegated after they won the FA Cup, that it just felt like this was going to be us now. We're going to be a strong Premier League side. You know, we'd finished 9th the season before, and we'd gone on what, like 12 games. We'd gone on without losing a game in that season. Like, we were absolutely unstoppable at times. We were fantastic, finishing 9th, and then the year later we win the Carling Cup. Had a place in Europe the following season as well. It was a great time for the club. It really was. But we went down that season mainly because I think we just sort of filtered out towards the end of the season. We didn't have the players for it. A lot of our key players got injured after that. Nikola Zigic never played afterwards, never played for us in that league afterwards. A lot of injuries really didn't help. And I think had they been fit, we wouldn't have been in that scrap at all.
Yeah.
We'd have been in the Premier League. And we wouldn't have had to have that crazy season next season when we had about 60 games in that one season where we had Houghton as manager. We played 46 championship games. I think it was about, because we had 2 qualifying games against Nacional and the Europa League to get into that. And then we had 6 games in the Europa League. We also had a long FA Cup run as well. We got to the, I think it was the 6th round of the FA Cup against Chelsea and we lost away. We had a replay in that as well. It was roughly about 60 games. So we were amazing that season. Like, the form we were in, some of the players, like Chris Burke was absolutely sensational that season for us. We had Nathan Redmond coming through, amazing young talents. We had Zigic up front, Adam Rooney as well. He was a name from the past. And considering we had like a shoestring budget, we were absolutely fantastic. And the club was falling apart. We had this X-Step brand that was sponsoring the kit. The kits didn't arrive for like a half a year for the fans, so nobody had like the new kit in the stadium. Everybody was wearing like the 90s kits, which is like the ones I'm wearing behind my wall. You know, like, we'd done amazingly, but it kind of felt like if we didn't get promoted that season, then we'd be in the rot, really. Because we made the playoffs, we finished 4th. All of our players got really tired towards the end of that season. We lost to Blackpool in the semi-finals, and ever since then, it's been just sort of the same, really. I mean, like, we've had a couple of seasons where we've looked all right, you know, under like Rowett and Monk. I think Gary Monk was the last manager that we really could have looked to have redeveloped the club into like being at least a competitive team, because we were for a good period of that season in the 18-19 season. You know, we were 6th, I think, at one point, and we were doing really well. We were above Villa for the majority of the season. You know, doing really well. Got a lot of good players. Che Adams scored 22 goals that season. Lukas Djukovic scored about 19, I think. You know, we were a proper informed side, but obviously because of the stuff off the pitch as well, then that wasn't helping. So we got points deductions for that. It was sort of more of a sign for things to come, really, rather than the turnaround. That was the disappointing realisation when he got sacked. because I think I don't know too much about the whole topic really, because mostly at the time when he did get sacked, I was more or less crying in a dark room with a box of chocolates, really, rather than reading up on
Tub of
why
ice
he's been
cream.
sacked. Yeah. Just trying to get over my depression. Because like the season after, it was a decent season. We didn't do too badly. I mean, the end of
Yeah.
the season was what made us finish so badly, but. Pep Clotter, he was a good coach. He worked with Gary Monk in that season. He got a lot of players to their full potential. I mean, he bought Gary Gardner, who was realistically, like, for Villa, he'd never really done anything. I mean, aside from score against us and run the whole length of the pitch and start celebrating with the Villa fans. And now he's our main midfielder, saying that he's a Blues fan. I'm like, really?
That's just like,
Do Blues fans really do that?
That's just like Ashley Cole when he signed for Chelsea. He's like, I'm now a Chelsea fan. It's like, really, Ashley? Really?
You don't have to be. You can say you're not and just play for the fucking club.
Exactly.
I just felt like though that season could have been the turning point, and well, I mean we went on a terrible run of form that season as well. We're on a bit of a bad run of form at the moment, but it just felt like something was happening again. Like we had Gary Rowett, but we hadn't hit the same form as we did when we were under Rowett than we did with Monk, because obviously he has like proper championship experience as a manager. He's been with Leeds, he's been with Borough. He's been like a proper manager with these clubs. He knows how to turn them around. He's really got them working hard. He kept us up on the last day against Fulham. It was an amazing day. It was proper hot, proper sunny. We beat them 3-1. I mean, they got promoted through the Championship playoffs and they beat the Villa in the final as well. So that was fantastic. I mean, like, had we lost that game,
a wee bit more sweeter, I bet.
Oh, it was amazing. It was fantastic. It was fun. Honestly, because obviously I was like, that season, Fulham and Derby played each other in the semi-finals. I was just like wanting Derby to win so badly because I knew that Fulham were just going to lose against them. And then literally, I couldn't watch the actual playoff final game. And then I'm reading it on like the BBC Live pop-up text and see that Tom Kearney scored. I'm like, oh my God, get in. So literally, I was like heart beating out my face throughout the whole day.
I remember it was an absolute wonder goal.
And then obviously they get promoted the next season after we've had a pretty decent season. It's just like typical, absolute typical. Yeah, they were good times, to be honest. They were like the best times since that Europa League season, really. Because since then it's just been like bottom of the table, and then survive on the last day of the season, and then finally to have like a proper, push for at least a good period of the season. It was like, oh God, we're gonna be at least competitive. No, we're not going to be competitive. Since 2017, we haven't finished above 17th, and we haven't been relegated. So we've been in between 17th and 21st for those, how many years? 6 years, is it?
6 years, yeah.
So it's
7 years now, aye.
We are literally going nowhere. That's the thing. It's not going nowhere can be defined as like, oh, we're just like we're going to get relegated, all hell's going to break loose. That's not what that means. Like, we're in the same situation as Everton are, really. Like, we're not going anywhere. We're not going down. We're not going up the table. We're just in the same position where Nottingham Forest were in it for a good period of time. I mean, they had a couple of seasons where they finished around the playoffs and that. But like they probably had the same situation. But like with them, it's like it always feels with us like whenever anything good happens to us, like we have like the worst possible thing ever happened to us. It's like you win the Carling Cup, right? You're going to get relegated. Right, you're then going to be in the Europa League and you have a chance to be back in the Premier League. But because you played this many games, you can't, because your players are all shattered. So then you can't beat Blackpool of all teams to go back into the Premier League. And then you're going to have 10 years of absolute nothingness. And then decay, stadium close, £175 million in debt for the owners. It's just absolutely nothing worse could have come from this, really, in this last 12 years since we won the Carling Cup.
So that's what I was going to ask. Do you think the Carling Cup is actually hampered you in a way for winning that? They've kind of just like we've won some silverware, but that's just given us some bad stuff happened to us since then. Like, can we just sell the Carling Cup and give it back? Give it to us?
I'd be amazed to look at like a parallel universe and see what we'd have done had we stayed up that season. Because I would be really fascinated to see that. Because obviously, Carson Young obviously would have still been caught out for being money launderer, not drug launderer. That's not a thing. He probably did deal in drugs. No, I didn't say that.
Where did that out?
But in terms of like, he got caught, and then that's why we had no money to spend in the Championship as well. But I feel like had we been in the Premier League, somebody would have still been interested in us to come and buy us, really, and that would have bought us out of this situation, which is the situation we're in now, because nobody wants to come buy us. Nobody wants to pay £175 million for a club that's going nowhere.
I think that's the perfect segue into our next question, which we got down here. And what is the main issues with the current ownership of the club?
And now remember, keep it nice and keep it.
No liable things said.
Yeah, no liable things.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely not in the know, but someone who is someone called Daniel Ivory. He goes by the name of Almagir on his socials and on his websites. He's an incredible guy. You should really go and have a look at some of his work. It's like some of the stuff he writes about is like proper amazing stuff to read about, really. But in my opinion, just from being like around the club for such a long time and being a proper fan of the club and reading journalists like Daniel Ivory, the biggest issue really is that they're no longer investing in the club. You know, they have, but they're not anymore, and that's evident by the fact that the lower Cop and Tilton stands are closed. They've just refused to fix them, really, because they just can't be asked with the club anymore.
Yeah.
And you know that it's because they've wasted that money before on, you know, they've been naive with people like Redknapp and people like Zola as well. They got the wrong people in, really. You know, they didn't need to. They tried to go for John Terry with Harry Redknapp. They didn't get him, so they spent probably the same amount of money on their third choice options. We spent about £30 million in 2017. I think 3 of those players are still ours. We bought about 12 players. So that definitely amasses to the 175 million that we have in debt. It's just, if they're not going to invest in the club anymore, though, they should sell up and leave. You know, that's the thing, really, because that's what we're trying to do at the moment with our protests. Because, you know, like, you know, we've had owners before where they've not been the best, really. But if they're not going to invest, leave. You've got no issue here. You've got no things here. But the only reason they don't want to sell is because they're £150 million in debt, so they want to get that money back.
Money back.
Yeah, exactly. And they want the money from Jude Bellingham because they made him into a professional during his time here. And I think we'll get about 25% of that fee back. So if he goes for 200 million, he'll go for what? We'll get 25%? So
25%.
50 million, is it?
50 million. 50 to 55 million pound, depending.
So that's depending on certain things here and there with agents and that. Yeah, I think that's if he goes to an English club. I think if he goes to a foreign club, we'll get 5% back. I think that's what I read. So hoping he goes to Man City in the summer, really,
or Liverpool.
One of those.
Ends up at Chelsea at another multi-billion-pound sale. But so that kind of leads me into this one. So you kind of talked about the managers there. So I kind of jumped one question, but is the high turnover of managers a cause of concern? I mean, like you said, you've had about 9 managers since Steve Cottrell took over as a club, and then you've kind of went manager here, manager there.
Yeah, it's definitely 9 managers. I don't think it's since Steve Cottrell. I think it's since Gary Rowett. I think
that's Gary Rowett. Sorry.
Yeah. So that he left in 2016. Well, he got sacked in 2016 because he didn't want to renew his contract at the end of the season. Yeah. So rather than doing the smart thing and just running down his contract and then finding a new manager in that time, they went, no, let's sack him now and let's get somebody else in halfway through the season with a completely different team. We brought in Gianfranco Zola, who probably could have done a decent job for us had he had a transfer window.
Yeah.
And then it was all too late then. And then, so we got rid of Zola then. So those are the 2 managers there. We then brought in Harry Redknapp to try and get that sort of, I don't know, club philosophy back maybe, or trying to get players who would
last like 3 months or something like that, or something.
He came in April, I want to say, and left in about August or September sort of time. So that's like 5 months, I think
5
it is.
months.
Yeah, it was a bad move. It felt like a bad move at the time, really, because it was like, we brought in Harry Redknapp, obviously. He's not been in the job really since when he was last at QPR, I think it is. And he's obviously got a bit of rust really from not being in a position like that for a long time. I think he had some health issues at the time as well. So he was never really fully in with the job. I think as soon as we didn't get John Terry and he went to the Villa, I felt like his heart really wasn't in it. It felt like we were just sort of coasting along really. We bought some players who just weren't the players we needed really. We brought in Carl Jenkinson, who maybe 10 years ago would have been like an interesting player to have bought, you know, young right back. bought Cohen Bramall as well, and Jota and Harley Dean. You know, they were decent players, but they didn't mould with the team that we had at the time. And his sort of justification with that at the time was that you can't keep on playing the same team that have been in relegation scraps for the last 3 seasons. And I was like, that makes
Yeah.
sense. But you then can't buy players who are also in relegation scraps like Carl Jenkinson and Jota and those type of players. You know, like you've got to have like a player who like top of the league type players or players coming down from the Premier League. You know, like
Yeah.
those type of players would work. That's why John Terry would have been like the guy to have brought in. But obviously he went to Villa because there's more stability at Villa. Even though that pains me to say, that, it really annoys me. But, you know, that's just sort of the way
you
things
said that
are.
through gritted teeth there.
Yeah, there's much more stability.
I mean, you look at some like you said, some of the managers that came in, like Lee Bowyer. Lee Bowyer knows the club, played for the club for a spell as well. He knew the club. Do you think it was down to like the boards and the kind of owners why it didn't work for him, or do you think it was just Lee Bowyer not being a good manager, or what?
I think it's a mix of all of them, really.
Yeah,
I think Bowyer didn't work mainly because the fact that he didn't get along with some of the players. He brought in Lyle Taylor towards the end of the season. He brought him in the January transfer window as a loan. And apparently him and Troy Deeney didn't get along very well. So that's why he obviously must have left. And John Eustace is now good friends with Troy Deeney. So I feel like they are trying to work better as a team now. So I feel like obviously you can't get rid of Troy Deeney, but you can get rid of Lee Bowyer. You can sack him. So which one's the more difficult one? So you probably just get rid of Bowyer and then bring in Eustace, keep Troy happy and getting him playing at his best. Because I do agree with that in some way, even though it does feel a bit shit at times, really. You know, because Troy Deeney on his day, you know, he's an ex-Premier League striker, isn't he?
He's a bully of a player. I mean, I've always remember that moment, Watford and Leicester. That Deeney. I think Troy Deeney is a fantastic player, but he needs players around him. It's going to create. Okay, he scores a penalty. He tries to break the ball every time he takes a penalty, but I like Deeney. I think he's an old-fashioned striker, bullies you. Nobody wants to play against him, but he's not got the players around him to do that. I mean, that kind of question we'll kind of talk to in about in a minute. But the manager side of things, do you think John Eustace is the correct manager for Birmingham at this moment in time, or do you think he's another young manager that's going to be maybe onto the kind of wayside a wee bit? Or
I don't know. I feel like he's the right manager for the group of players we got right now. He's a likable character. He's not like Bowyer where he wants results, and because Bowyer's a winner. I think that's the biggest thing that we realised. Because like his demand for players, I saw him a couple of times on the touchline. Obviously, being in the games a lot, you see a lot of what's happening. And like Bowyer was always up on the touchline, barking out orders, trying to get the best out of people. And I think for people like Troy Deeney, obviously with him being an ex-Premier League striker and being a very, I'd say, fairly successful one as well in the Premier League with his time at Watford. Gotten to an FA Cup final and everything. I feel like that's his sort of role. He's a winner as well. So having two clashed sort of egos personalities, it's like difficult for both of them to get along. And with Lyle Taylor's a Lee Bowyer signing, that he's got a big ego and a big personality as well. He wants to win all the time. I feel like the easiest thing to do at the time was to get rid of Bowyer and send back Lyle Taylor and bring in John Eustace to try and keep Troy Deeney happy, because you know it's just the easiest option, I think, in the end. Because I liked them all. I thought Lyle Taylor was a great striker. You know, played with Charlton, played with Forest, very good striker. Lee Bowyer, Blues legend, is an absolute all-out winner. Always wants to win. You saw that with him at West Ham and Newcastle as well.
Yeah,
and then Troy Deeney's the same. But you know, it probably just didn't work in the dressing room, and obviously we don't have access to the dressing room with any of the fans, so all we can do really is guess, really. So that's sort of it's what you could sort of gather really from on the pitch. I feel like John Eustace works with the team really though, because they seem to respect him. I feel that's a good thing to have in the team. That's definitely for sure.
Some couple of scores coming through just now. So we've got Real Madrid are playing Valencia in the La Liga just now. Still 0-0. This will go for Real Madrid. And the Copa Italia, big one tonight. Juve versus Lazio. 1-0 to Juventus and Bremer, the Brazilian centre back, I believe, Bremer, and scored on the 44th minute. So, John, you want to ask the final question for our guest tonight. You're muted.
Whoops.
On this one, do you believe the current crop of players are good enough to drag you away from the relegation battle? I've got a few to add on this because
I think so, yes, because they've demonstrated a couple of times this season that they can they can reach the heights of 6th and 7th and those type of positions in the championship. We just at the moment have suffered from coming back from an international break, and everybody just looks a bit injured, a little bit deflated, a little bit exhausted. Scott Hogan's come back from injury recently, and he's not looked himself. We had a game against Blackburn the other night in the cup replay. I thought we were absolutely abysmal. I didn't think that we had the pace or anything in the whole game, really. We had a couple of chances. We created chances in and around the box. Our passing and our ability on the ball, though, was just completely off, which is really surprising considering where we were earlier in the season. Towards September and October times, we were absolutely flying. You couldn't stop us, really. Getting points against the top teams and winning the games comfortably, pretty much. I just feel like we suffered from not having that stability behind us in getting a January transfer window player in, because we've bought Redicadra, he looks great. I've never doubted really the recruitment at the club. It's always been very good, and even through the academy, like I said, we've had Jude Bellingham, we've had Nathan Redmond, Jordan Mutz, Jack Butland. We've had some incredible youngsters come through.
Two I wanted to bring up was obviously I'm a Manchester United fan, and you had Chong last year. Now you made that permanent, so he was a decent signing for you. And then obviously you got one of my favourite youth players in Hannibal on loan. How are they getting on?
I was very impressed with both of them when they first arrived. So Chong, when he first arrived, was absolutely great. Speed, power, looks fantastic, full of energy. Same with Hannibal when he first arrived. Speed, power, energy. His ability to press players into difficult situations and win the ball. He was fantastic. I just feel like the championship, with them being so many games back to back, both of them really are struggling with keeping up to the speed of the championship and the intensity of the championship. Because there's some big, tough players in there. It's not as technical as the Premier League. It's not as slowed down. I feel like we're struggling at the moment with playing the wrong style of football. We're playing very Route 1 football at the moment, which, this fan base is used to that. We can enjoy a bit of kick and rush here and there. But, the best football we played this season was definitely through Bielik, Hannibal and Chong, where they got on the ball and they started making chances down on the floor. But now we're going to this sort of weird in the air type of football all the time, and it's difficult for them to be in the game, really. I feel like what we need to do is go back to that football at the start of the season, but I feel like they're just too tired or too deflated at the moment to keep up that intensity, because obviously the championship's 46 games back to back. You've got you've got cup games in between as well, so it's tough for them. But they're definitely not. I can't word it now. They are trying. It's not like they're not trying. You can see that in them. It's definitely that, is for sure.
Because I was thinking about it the other day, that obviously after the Eriksen injury, and I was thinking about who they could potentially recall for that position, and that was the name that came. I thought, would they think about recalling Hannibal if they didn't get a midfielder on deadline day? So luckily we did. But I just wondered where you thought he was at. Any other players that shined out this season?
I think most of our players, in terms of the youngsters, look great. George Hall, who Troy Deeney was weirdly trying to sort of talk to other clubs about selling him on at one point. I can't remember what podcast he was on. I was like, come on, Troy, what are you doing, man? Just don't say those things. Even if you are, just keep it to yourself, man. You don't need to be coming out about those sort of things. You make yourself look a tit, really. He looks good. Alfie Chang the other night for us looks great, full of energy. This is the thing with the championship. We just need to keep players rotated. We need to make sure that they are getting the minutes, then make sure that they're fully fit. If that means dropping a few of the first team players for some of the youngsters to get a bit of spark into them, get a bit of energy into them, and try and mold them into a bit of a first team player, because it's always good to have as many as possible, no matter how young they are. Jude Bellingham was 16 when he left us, so we can always do that with other players. We've got Alfie Chang, I think 17, Jordan James is 18, who come on and got the equaliser for us in the first game against Blackburn. We need to rely on those. Well, no, wrong word. We need to sort of believe in them more and give them better chances, rather than giving them 2 minutes at the end and knackering all our first team players and then giving very little time for the youngsters to give any impacting the game. And that's what we really need to do. We need to try and focus on how to survive this championship season, because we're not going to get promoted anymore. We're not going to go and finish in the high end of the top half of the table. We need to just focus on what's the biggest issue at now on the pitch, really. And then hopefully, I'm praying to God that everything behind the scenes can all just sort itself out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, see, I'm kind of just looking at your team here just now. Do you think a lack of goals is hampering you this season as well? I mean, your top goal scorer, Scott Hogan, like you said, he's just back from injury. He's got 9 goals this season.
Mm.
Do you think that's a bit of an issue? I mean, Deeney's got 6 goals and 3 of them have been 3 or 4 have been penalties.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be? Do you think it's maybe a standout? It could maybe come through from the youth, like you said, from the reserve team. It can maybe make an impression, like Jude Bellingham did in the or Chang, like Jude Bellingham kind of burst on the scene, done what he done, got his big move. But do you think that could make or break your season if there's nobody there who's going to put the ball in the back of the net, basically?
Yeah, I feel like that is a big issue, because people were talking on Twitter the other day about potentially bringing in another striker. And that's why we're not getting Lyle Taylor back, because obviously I think he's on a free now as well from Forest.
He released.
So we didn't go back for him because of possibly the issues that Troy Deeney has with him.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of an annoying thing. It could have been a player we could have got in to have a bit of a push to make sure we don't get relegated, because that is still really a possibility. People really need to understand that, because I mean, like we were talking about earlier about Everton getting relegated and not coming back. That could happen for us, We get relegated into League One, that could be it for us as well. So with goal scorers on the pitch, we do have goal scorers, whether it's they're in form though. I mean, that's the thing with any players really. But Scott Hogan's a good goal scorer. He's a good fox in the box. Deeney's a good, hard, solid, battle away type of striker. Lucas Djukovic has been in fantastic form for us.
Just to say Djukovic, I mean, I remember his time at Motherwell, and he was a handful, absolute handful. But again, he's about late 30s now, isn't he, Djukovic?
Mid-30s, yeah. He's 33, I think, now, or 34.
Same age as me, then.
Yeah. Troy Deeney's in his 30s, and so is Scott Hogan. So yeah, it's an old front line, to be honest.
I was about to say that's a bit of an old front line, but it's goal scorers as well. I mean, Hogan, like you said, scored goals up and down. Yeah, you've got Deeney who scored up and goals up and down the country as well, and Djukovic. But that's what I'm saying. I think, like you said, Hogan's just back from injury. It's going to take maybe a couple of weeks to get back into the kind of swing of things. And like you said, the championship is like Saturday here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday.
So many games, isn't it?
So many games in a short space of time. I think that could possibly be Birmingham's kind of downfall if they've not got a goal scorer who's going to put the ball in the back of the net.
That's the sort of worry I get from this season, unlike other seasons we've had before, is I'm seeing a pattern with the 2 seasons when we got relegated and the Europa League season, where we filter out towards the end of the season. We haven't got the legs, we haven't got the players. We start playing some weird positions. Like we've always put players in like really strange positions, but in terms of like what it might come to the end of the season, if we can't even put a fucking 11 out on the pitch, it's like we're gonna have to battle away, and we need to start winning some games. We're on a 6 run. I think it's 6 games we've not won.
Just having a look at it, so I think it's 5 or 6 games you're on not been.
And you've lost all of them, yeah.
And you're not scored many goals as well. That's again, that's what I think. That's what it's going to boil down to. It is scary times for Birmingham fans. I mean, so I'll ask you kind of final kind of question. Do you think you'll get relegated this season, or do you think you'll survive? Do you think it'll be another?
I really hope
another
it's
last day.
I remember we got relegated at White Hart Lane that day in 2011, and we didn't watch the game because my dad thought it'd be a bit too hectic for all of us. I think I was still 8 at the time. My brother was about 4, 5 maybe.
Yeah.
So we didn't watch him. We got back and we realised we were relegated. That was absolutely heartbreaking. I feel like with this one though, however, if we were to get relegated, it would be like, I don't know, it wouldn't even be like heartbreaking. It would just be like there's such an apathetic feeling around the club at the moment. It's like the whole campaigns to try and get the club, the owners to sell up the club. It's an effort. It really is. It's difficult and it's really winding people down. And so I feel like if we got relegated, it would just be like not another thing. Like it just be the biggest kick in the teeth ever. Because honestly, we've struggled away so much these last few seasons. To get relegated this season, it would just be like we can't buy a win anywhere. Like literally, we were so close. Us and Villa in 2018, 2019, we were literally like neck and neck with each other. You look at us now; we're absolutely light years away from each other. Like Villa are in the Premier League; they're buying players like Coutinho and Buendia, and they've got managers who've had like Gerrard and Emery and those type of people. You look at us, and we've just gone the complete other way. It's like it always feels so unfair supporting the Blues. It's like you have one good thing, right? Here's another 10 bad things that happen to you. Really.
It's that Carling Cup. I tell you, it's jinxed.
We've had a lot of jinxes at the club recently because like we had that curse on the ground as well. So like Barry Fry used to have to go around the pitch and have a wee in each corner to try and get rid of the curse.
I remember reading about that. That is outstanding.
I saw about that as well.
It's amazing. Like we're an amazing club. We really are. Like more you read into it, that's why I highly recommend you read into like Almagir's posts that he does on his website.
Yeah,
I'm not promoting him. He's not associated with.
If you give us the links, we'll put it in the comments.
That's why I would love. I'm a filmmaker myself. For those that are watching, like, I would love to make a Netflix mini docu-series on all of this because like the stuff that's happened behind the clubs, it's just like it's unbelievable. It's incredible. I mean, like this Almagier guy, Daniel Ivory, I can't remember what his position was at the club now, but the guy was called Dong Ren. He eventually was, I think he was sacked by the owners in the end, but they had this, I don't know what it was called. It was like a warehouse at the back that held all of his old stuff in. And they invited him in, the people pretty much from the club. I can't remember who it was at the club who invited him in now, but they got him to go for all of his stuff. And he's seen that he's been paying like a Netflix account through the club's bank account. There's like all sorts of stuff. I'm telling you, you should read his articles. They are the most amazing things ever. Have a look at him, Google him, Daniel Ivory, Almagier. It's incredible. Like the stuff you can read up on it. And that's why if there's a Netflix watching this, I'd love to make a documentary.
You heard it, Netflix bosses get Blues Focus on. They'll do a don't need
I do my match
penny.
day blogs.
He'll do it for free.
Podcasts. Literally, yeah. I've got all my portfolios on the website. I make my own stuff. I'm at university now. I would love to make a documentary on this. I could definitely do that. I'd be all up for that. That'd be amazing.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
Amazon if you're watching this, Disney Plus if you're watching this.
Yeah, all of them.
We've got a few Wrexham fans in the back. We'll get in touch with Ryan Reynolds and as well.
I mean, like the Sunderland Till I Die or Leeds ones look like a Disney film compared to ours. Ours would be like Breaking Bad or Peaky Blinders.
Yours is more like American Horror Story.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
that Sunderland Till I Die is really good.
Because that's a different one to the Leeds one, isn't it? Because Leeds are on the way back up and they're starting to redevelop. And obviously, it's a happy ending in the end, even though they do lose to Derby in the semi-final. But you see Sunderland, it's just such a struggle. I mean, like I've watched that and thought, yeah, you're not as bad as the Blues, though. Like at least you've got some hope, at least.
Yeah, they're doing a lot better now this season.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Blues Focus. Where can we find you, mate?
You can find us on YouTube at Blues Focus TV. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. I don't know the @s for that particularly. There's all the weird sort of underlinks or whatever it is into the @s that confuse me. There will be in the comments. Yeah. I do a regular match day vlog. You can come and watch this. It's getting some good attraction now. We'd also do a podcast, myself included, with Zach and Jamie. We're great guys. We put a podcast out last night. It was a good, funny one. We did like the best team we can make from the last 3 seasons, which was an interesting one. Yeah, it was. Surprisingly, it was actually a decent team. It's the fact that we've just been playing so badly in those last 3 seasons. It's like, have we been playing so badly then? But yeah, you can find us all at those links. Be sure to come and subscribe to us. We're very interactive with our audience, so come leave us some abuse when we lose 4-0 in the next game against Swansea.
Chris, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris_Watt89, and you can find me here on the Football Nation podcast.
Yep. And you can find me Jono.tv on Twitter, at Road to Legends FM, which is currently going on now, and the Football Nation podcast. Make sure you smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, turn that bell on so you never miss an upload. This is the Football Nation, your home of all things football. Good night.